Welcome back to Activista Rise Up. I am Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina, your host. You can listen to this conversation on all my social media platforms or on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Today, I am very proud to host a fellow Salvadoran, an amazing woman who is a trailblazer as a journalist, anthropologist, and now as an author. She recently released a book called SalviYorkers. It's both available in English and Spanish. And this book, I am so proud to talk about it because it traces the contributions, the migration of Salvadorans to New York. And now she's in a second project that she will tell us all about it today. But as a fellow Salvadoran, as someone who always is talking about Central American contributions and our migration, I was happy to have the opportunity to meet her and now to talk about her book. Please help me welcome author, anthropologist, and journalist Carmen Molina Tamacas. Welcome, Carmen.
Hi, Patricia. Thank you very much for the invitation, giving me this opportunity to share with your public about this project, these dreams.
Yes, I remember you always talk about it as a dream because you always wanted to write this book and it took you a little bit to get there. So, but before we tell us a story so that you can inspire everybody who's trying to write a book, including me, learn a little bit about how you got it done. Tell the public a little bit about yourself. When did you get here and what was the inspiration for becoming an author?
Well, I was born and raised in El Salvador. I lived almost my childhood as a teenager, and I work as a journalist. I started very young, at the age of 18, and I work in several newspapers. And during the first years of after the civil war in El Salvador, so it was a little hard and complicated, but I learned a
As
lot.
a journalist during the war, that must have been it's very.
As, right after the war ended, and it was a very complicated and very unstable and very violent. I mean, our history is very violent, our country. So, and I focused on the cultural journalism. So that's how my passion developed. And then I immigrated to United States in almost 11 years ago, and it was hard because I came to Brooklyn. We
Yeah.
lived in Brooklyn 10 years. So in El Salvador, I was a professional working mom, and with all my network of family, friends, and as a journalist. And then in Brooklyn, I was a staying at home mom.
Hmm.
So, and that hit hard because uh, New York City is a hard place to raise a family
Yeah.
and with a network. But some friends that helped me to make connections, and I started working. I came as a freelancer for El Diario de Hoy and El Salvador, El Salvador.com.
That's one of the largest newspapers in El Salvador.
Yes.
El
Yeah,
Diario
in Central, yeah, in El Salvador. So, but here, you hear nobody.
Yeah.
And I got I was introduced to El Diario La Prensa as a director, and I started working as a freelance, and that gave me a lot of. It was a great opportunity to open my mind and my eyes beyond the El Salvador landscape in
Yeah.
general,
Yeah.
because I start writing about the the issues of the community, access to healthcare, education, services, and of course the hot topics as immigration or violence. And at the same time, I started. So all those stories,
Yeah.
most of the Salvadorian stories that I had the opportunity to write for El Diario and for El Diario de Hoy in El Salvador, I so I first, you can see the lack of bibliography, the lack of documentation about Salvadorans in Salvador, not just Salvadorans, but Central Americans, because there are just a few studies, and most of them are projections. Of course, there are studies from, for example, the Migration Policy Institute, the Pew Research Center, and but these are so I will say cold studies because I mean it's the hardest part is the
Yeah.
statistics, is the projections.
The data gathering, yeah, the facts, yeah.
Exactly, and in my opinion, because this is my passion, so and because I'm trained both as journalists, and we need to remember that journalism takes the method from the social science. So and
Yeah.
with that training, so but my purpose. So and I first I confronted the lack of documentation.
Yeah.
So I start building up,
Yeah.
building the documentation, the books, and then how you put a face to
The
these
story.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like, okay, we're talking about remittances,
Mhm.
and violence, the gang violence and immigration, all the problems at the southern border. Okay, but who who are these people?
Yeah.
So, and I start collecting all these stories, and how the idea of the book started is because many of the stories were published in online media, and all
Mhm.
of a sudden they disappear because that happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought myself, so it was challenging to keep my own records.
Yeah.
So and I said, oh, maybe I could write a book. Okay, that was, I will say, 10 years ago at the same time.
Yeah.
And so and then I start so practically the first edition of the book that covers 90 years of stories of Salvadoran immigrants in New York. It was parallel as my own immigrant story. So
Yeah.
it is parallel. So I and you will
So
understand, and
yeah. So
you will
even
understand this
yeah.
because
So
I
the
was.
story that you or your own migration was reflected on the story of the migrations that from people that came before us, before you. Yeah.
Exactly. And I always say, and you as a woman and
Yeah.
as a mother will understand when I say is this is the third and longest pregnancy that I have had.
Yes. Yes. I felt the same way when I was writing my dissertation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so and I selected one story per every 10 years, and to show like examples of what was happening.
Yeah.
So is this is not the story of Salvadorans in New York, because I'm not a historian, so and that will be too arrogant for me to say it, but chronicles 90 years. So
So
what?
so you get to experience from the story of the person what was happening around the time for them. So you get to learn about them.
And the most important thing here is that I was able to meet many of the key persons. So as you said, the real trailblazers. So, and one of them, and this is how everything started. So with Cathy Andrei.
Hmm.
Mrs. Cathy Andrade was she came in I think 1951, very young, and she was the director of the Department of Education from the International Ladies Garment Union
I
uh,
know.
during 4 years, and she
I remember that name because I work for the LGW. Yes. Yeah.
exactly. So, and there were two old or veteran activists that told me separated. One is Omar Enriquez and the other is Miguel Ramirez. And they told me, if you want to write about Salvadorans, you need to meet Cathy Andrade, porque ella es la matriarca de los salvadoreños en Nueva York. Everybody knew her, everybody lived at her apartment, and she helped any, not just Salvadorans, but many Latinos. So, and the New York Times wrote articles about her and the work that she was done along with her husband, because they founded a Salvadoran cultural group. She just passed last year at the age of 88. The New York Times published this big obituary, that how important she was, and I had the honor of meeting her, and she gave me pictures from stuff, and that is the very first, the origin of my book. So, and I said, no, this needs to be so the, and I was finding so many stories,
Yeah.
because maybe people that work in the field of human rights or activism or unions, they know her, they knew who she was, but not me, not
Yeah.
my generation, and of course not. So how to preserve her legacy for the new and upcoming generations? So that's how it started.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to show you that how if you one individual, if you like, has so many connections and networks. And one of the amazing things of the Salvadoran experience is that we've always been in a social movement building mode, because since our arrival, we sort of had to find our niche, right? I can imagine Salvadorans coming to New York, where they were a minority, even among Latinos, right? The population was Puerto Rican and Cuban, so they sort of had to figure out their own little community. So what I loved about this book, and I encourage everybody to read it, it's on Amazon. You can order it, it's both in English and Spanish. Está en inglés y en español. Se llama SalviYorkers. What I loved about the book is the focus on the person's experience, and how they were able to overcome their own we all have our own story. That's why stories are important, because we can connect to them in different ways. So I love that about the book. Like, you actually, it's not just the migration, right, or the numbers. It's not just the economic conditions, which is sort of like we get caught up on that, but like, the stories, how people made a community, how they made a life, and what other people they impacted. So so I appreciate that part about your book. So so from Cathy Andrade, you just started connecting people and deciding who else to interview. So besides Cathy, who else made an impact on you that you want to share with our listeners from this book?
And it's amazing how you describe, because that is the most important thing, the stories, but not just from people that had huge achievements, but also, and as I said, is ordinary people. But if you listen, because this is important, the stories of the stories, they are kind of extraordinary, because every immigrant has oh my god, the amount of challenges, the how hard it is to make a life here. So, and I will start talking about the cover of the book, and you just show it. So the cover of the book features Mrs. Jeronima Campos. She immigrated at the age of 86. She came from the countryside in El Salvador. She had 10 children, and the older daughters came here to Long Island, because most Salvador, the biggest the settlement in New York is in Long Island.
Yes.
The, and this started in the 60s, because the work in the factories and surrounding the aerospatial and military industry, and many factories. And for women, they came in many in many waves, attracted for the not just for the factories, but other kind of work, that is, as babysitters, nannies, housekeepers. So the older daughters from Mrs. Campos, they came in the 60s and they were able to immigrate her. Her husband was died already when she came. And the picture is one of the one of her grandchildren, the grandson, whose name is Victor Perez. He took her to the World Trade Center on September 9, 2001. Yeah,
Yeah.
2 days before the terrorist
The
attacks.
terrorist attack. Wow.
So when we were discussing about what to do about the cover of the book with my editor, who is the escritor dominicano, cubano dominicano José Fernández Pequeño, a very experienced editor, and we were talking about this, how powerful this picture is, because sorry, Miss Campos is there,
Yeah.
watching, the
landscape.
city, the landscape, and conquering the greatest city in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the picture is powerful because that moment can be repeated in the time and space, because she passed at the age of 104 years, and because the World Trade Center is no more. So, and the biggest consequences of what happened. So, and when you start connecting and analyzing, so that is just the cover of the book. So that's how impacting the stories can be. And I can talk about a little bit about the title, the SalviYorkers, because it's not that common, and I didn't create that name or hash, even is a hashtag, but I found it, and I found it in the social media. Because Salvadorian, the younger Salvadorians or millennials, they just call themselves Salvi. So the Salvi experience, the Salvi vegan, the Salvis Unidos, and they look, and many of them are looking for their roots, their connections, that maybe the connections, they don't exist with the past, with the culture, with El Salvador. And this is related, in my opinion, because there are so many traumas and stories behind why the families came. So, la mayor cantidad de inmigrantes comenzó con la guerra, o es el exilio más grande.
The biggest migration of Salvadorans came in the 80s. Yes.
In the 80s, yeah.
The war.
Yeah. So this happened during the war.
Yeah.
So, and many people was fleeing the war. They got caught in the middle of ataques y tiroteos or massacres. So that's why many people, they don't know what happened to their parents, grandparents, that are the generations that came first. Because it's hard to talk about trauma, because trauma, I mean, maybe there are scars, not just physical, but emotional, about what happened.
One of the biggest, I'm glad you're raising this, because one of the biggest issues that we have as a Central American migration, and specifically as Salvadorans, is that migration of the 1980s never really led to a full legalization for a lot of people. So if you were a parent who had to leave their kids behind, and I lived that, my parents left me behind because they couldn't, the war forced them out. It took me about 6 to 7 years to reunite with my family. But there's people who never reunited. The people who were left behind, they had their kids and their grandkids, and they were never able to fully be a family. So there's all this, the trauma of family separation is a reality for a lot of Salvadorans.
So but we need, and one of the important things about this, and how can we revisit the story, is not just for El Salvador, but also other countries like Nicaragua and Guatemala, that were, Central America was one of the last scenarios from the Cold War. Yeah. Right. So, but the impossibility of getting a legal status, so the consequences are still present. And why? And that's why I included that in the first part of the book. Is hard to read. It's hard. It was the hardest part to read, to translate, and to I'm going to give you a surprise later. Now I'm going to say it now because I'm working in the audiobook, and
Oh,
it's
awesome.
precisely one of the hardest part, because the language, because we need to understand, or remind this country the responsibility of the governments, or the interventionism. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm saying correctly.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
And all the, because the impact of the foreign policy of the United States, not just in Central America, Mexico, but the whole Latin America, of course, the world, because we might know what United States government did. I mean, in the particular case of El Salvador, the government was sending military aid, and we can say that during the worst years of the war, we will say in the middle 80s, $1 million every day in military aid, in
Percent.
guns. And so, and how do you expect things will turn 20, 30
Yes.
years? So, and that is important, because many people don't know, oh, what is this? So
Why do we still are dealing with the Central American migration? You're
why the
absolutely
problem, why is
right.
this big problem, what these big problems in the south border? So why so many children, or families, or women with children are risking their lives trying to cross the border? So the origin of that is from the 80s. And also we can, there are many, there was a trend too, in that trend in the 60s, not just because of the work available, but also after Honduras and El Salvador war, that it was in 1969.
Yeah.
But and it's so fascinating, when you start tracking down. And one of the other key elements is, and I just mentioned that the first edition of the book chronicles 90 years. Why 90 years? Because I was able, with the help of one of Ecuadorian and journalist friend, Maria Barrera, we found the records from a Salvadoran Italian family that came exactly in 1929.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so, and the father, he was an optician, and he wrote his memories. So he wrote his memories in English, and sadly the book is not available for the public. But that's how, and he's telling not just his biography, his autobiography, but also he was describing what was living the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And that's important, the documentation of our own stories,
Yeah.
what happened later. So the book, and that's how it started, the first edition. And then the stories from the 40s, the 50s, with Cathy Andrei, the Omar Enriquez, who is a very known
Yes.
veteran activist, that he came in the early 70s,
Yes.
and his experience, and then the big exile from the 80s, and the economic and violent migrations from the 18 and 19. And the last story is about a family that still lives undocumented in Brooklyn. And the last daughter came, she joined one of the caravans, una de las caravanas. So she came in one
La
of the
caravana de
biggest.
Centroamérica, cuando
Sí,
en-
sí, o sea que la gente empezó a caminar desde el centro de San Salvador, desde el centro de San Salvador a Estados Unidos. So it was so traumatic and dramatic, because they were kidnapped by the coyotes. They spent long time in las hieleras, que son las celdas de la policía
right,
fronteriza. So traumatized, and she's still fighting for asylum. So that covers 90 years.
Yeah.
What happened? So the book is released in 2020, January 2020, right before the pandemic, or maybe during the pandemic, but we don't know that the
Yeah.
coronavirus, it was going to change our life forever. And in February, I did an interview with journalist Jose Martinez from New York One. And the next day, I got a message on the Facebook page of SalviYorkers, and from a retired teacher. His name is Bernard Lopez, and he's saying, "Oh, I wish we could have met before because my father came 100 years ago."
Oh,
And they just celebrated the 100 years of the
his
route
dad
that
coming
they
to United States. Wow.
and what is fascinating is because he's a retired teacher, so he kept the pictures and documents from his father, and we were able to build, to reconstruct his life when he came. And actually we found the registry when he came into the state, and it was 1 year before. It was 1918. So it is fascinating, and he kept the letters of recommendations because he worked as a doorman in theaters and hotels in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And he ended up joining the army for the World War II. So, and he was saying, yeah, but my father, él no era un profesional, pero yeah, I mean, it falls in the category, he was an ordinary man who lived an extraordinary story that we just can have a glimpse. Él luchó en la Revolución Mexicana y termina su vida como un marinero mercante durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial. O sea, es
Imagínate eso.
como,
Yeah.
eso fue, y construir la segunda edición del libro tiene el inserto con la historia del señor Ángel López, and that is the frame from the English version that took 2 years,
Years.
two
Yeah.
pandemic years, and other personal circumstances that I needed to do it. So it was.
I know you own the rights to your book, and you are promoting it and getting it out there. So tell us a little bit about how because a lot of people. I always said that we need to tell our stories. It doesn't matter if they're you don't have to be famous and rich. You just have to sort of share what you have experienced, and the more we do that, the more our lives become part of the narrative of the United States. So by you were able to do it, and you were able to keep the rights to your book, and now you're promoting it in libraries across the state and across the country. So how can we help you promote the book and to get as much libraries that we can, so that people learn to start getting to know who we are as a community, that we have been in the United States way beyond the war, so, and we'll talk more about that. How can we help you get the book in more libraries?
Bueno, estoy haciendo el trabajo de hormiguita, little by little. So it's important. So my dream is to put the book accessible in the whole New York City, at least libraries from schools. So, but for that to happen, needs to be requested. I'm working with a couple of principals. So, and because it's the process from the Department of Education. I mean, the Department of Education of New York City is the biggest district.
One of the largest ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than 1 million of students. So, and then I'm reaching out to the Latin American studies institutes or departments, and for them to trying to present the book. And some of them are just I just contacted the Brooklyn the book is available at the New York Public Library.
Awesome.
is there.
Awesome. Yes, I could see.
And I just started the process with the Brooklyn Public Library. And there are also students salvadoreñas, por cierto, que están, hay una salvadoreña que está estudiando un PhD en Albany.
Okay.
So she asked the librarian to order the book, and ese fue el libro en español, todavía no había salido en inglés, and I just contact the librarian and I told him, listen, the book that she asked you to order now is available in English.
Yeah.
Perfect, I'm gonna order it. Oh my God, it's like, it's, you know, I'm not, of course I'm not getting rich or millionaire. Is my goal is the book to be read, to be criticized, because I got several people that have taken gente que se ha tomado el trabajo de, hey, esto no es así, esta fecha no es así, esto es un error, o sea, porque es como todo libro, es un producto humano que es imperfecto.
Sí.
Pero el objetivo es, bueno, que sea discutido, que sea analizado. I went to present it to Washington, D.C. It was an amazing experience.
I saw that on social media. So you
yes,
you got some old friends there.
Yes, I know. And at the presentation, there was one of the teachers from the University of Maryland, and oh my God, this was amazing because she showed me the tests from her students, because they were assigned to read one of the chapters of my book. So, and she showed me the questions that they had for me. So that was, you know, that, because that's it. That's the full
writer's one, right? Feedback.
Yeah, and it's not because it's just about El Salvador, and because people can get a little jealous. We Colombians, we don't have that. If we look the story, yeah, because nobody have. Nadie lo ha escrito.
Like that, I said,
o me dicen, ¿cuándo vas a escribir la historia de los salvadoreños en the West Coast? Well, I don't live there, and you should do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But and you asked me before this question. So what are my new
what's your new project? Yes, that's your new project.
Yeah. So well,
before we go there, I want to say that you told us a little bit of what you're trying to do, which is calling libraries and putting yourself in front of libraries and universities. Also, our listeners, you know, Activista Rise Up, we have a good group of people and we encourage people to take action. So I will say to our listeners, and we'll put all the information at the end of the conversation, call your school board, call your principal, your local library, and ask them, could they have the book? Would they put the book in the library? And that is a way that you can help us, or can help Carmen get the book out. And it's not just about helping Carmen, it's about getting the story of the Salvadoran experience in the public sphere, so that we all get to know a little bit more about each other. And if there's another book out there, please let me know, email me, and I'll promote it as well, because I'm all about promoting our stories. So what is your next project?
So I'm currently doing that, and thank you for mentioning that. And you will say, oh, this will be a topic that all people love, right? And I really appreciate, you know, the how people have reacted. But also I have had some bad experiences, and I'm still processing what happened, because I live now in New Jersey, and I requested my local public library. So I presented the book, and they took the English version, but they rejected the Spanish version.
Right here in New Jersey, they rejected the Spanish version?
Yes. So, and because they say that they don't have a Spanish books collection, and they will not spend money in something that they won't use. And I said, okay, I am giving it to you as free. And they say, no, thank you. So I'm still processing that, and I felt so.
20% of New Jersey are Latinos, so and I'm sure they will want to hear their stories in the library. So
Yeah, so I mean, it was a small victory because they put the book in the Bergen County library system, so it's there, the English version. So
but they didn't pick up the Spanish version.
yeah, they didn't pick up the Spanish, so I'm still trying to. So I
We have
felt
some
good.
elected public officials who are friends in Bergen County. We're gonna
Yeah,
get them engaged to help you correct that.
yeah, it was. So I prefer not to. I'm still processing about that experience, because the discomfort, or how my feelings, how I felt, is bordering discrimination. But I will leave
It's
the.
yeah, it's language bias, it's language discrimination, because we do have a high percentage of people who speak Spanish or only speak Spanish or want their kids to speak Spanish. So as a public library, you should offer the option if somebody wants to have it, read the
Yeah.
book in Spanish.
So and this system included 77 libraries in, I think, 4 counties.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll see. So I'm now with the after. I mean, the pandemic is not over, but now that things are starting open up a little bit, I've been doing presentations. The first one was in Washington. That was great experience. And then I had a presentation in Long Island that was amazing. A big group of Salvadorians very interested. I did another in the Newark Public Library, when
yeah.
I was able to meet a Salvadorian archivist,
Yes.
Activista. And yeah, and he's a third generation Salvadorian, because he said that his grandfather came. And as Omar Enriquez was telling me about the great history of Newark as a hub of work, and a lot of work. So and for this upcoming no, it's April 30th, I'll do a presentation at the West Orange Public Library.
Awesome.
Yes, so everybody is invited, and so little by little, and my and that's the goal. So I'm starting to build in this network of connections
Yeah.
here in New Jersey, because my goal, or my next project, will be maybe not just writing a similar book of Salvadorans in New Jersey, because the experience is completely different.
Yes, it is.
I mean, because many of them, they live across the river, they work in New York, or they stay in New Jersey. But there are in so many places but the experience is completely different, because New York City and New Jersey is totally different worlds.
Yes.
But also, why not starting thinking about the Salvadorans in the East Coast,
Yeah.
starting in Gwinnett, Duluth, Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
the DMV area, which is DC, Virginia, and Maryland, and then New Jersey, the tri-state area, que más
Yeah.
o menos ya está cuadrado con esta
Yeah. Exactly.
investigación,
Yeah.
Connecticut, Boston, Rhode Island. So I need to. So I'm. So
Yeah.
but
One of the things that I wanna, I'm glad you're doing that, because I wanna remind my listeners that the Central American population, of which Salvadorans are the largest, is the second largest population of Latin American immigrants after Mexicans. We already passed the Cuban numbers. And the Puerto Ricans are still larger. They're citizens, though they're not immigrants. So Puerto Ricans are citizens. So when it comes to immigrants, we are second after Mexicans. So we are everywhere. Central Americans, Salvadorans are everywhere in every city. So
Against the
to
odds.
tell our stories matters, right?
And against the odds, porque acaba de sacar un estudio Héctor Cordero Guzmán, y él analiza los ingresos y es devastador que ver que, por ejemplo, en New York City, los salvadoreños son los que están más abajo con un income que puede ser hasta de $1,200 a year.
Yeah. The lowest in my study that I did and compare Salvadorans in the New York, New Jersey, and Washington D.C. New Jersey earnings were the lowest in terms of
so why people is earning $900 and they have to pay for the bedroom, sharing a bedroom, right? Because apartments are it's so expensive. Then they have to pay internet, food, and also send la remesa.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of how you and I met, because I remember that you were, we both made a presentation about a research on Central Americans at the Plainfield school system, which is one of the largest school systems serving Central Americans in New Jersey. And I remember I was invited to speak because I do that with students, with Salvadorans and Central Americans, just because I wanted to see that there is a future, even though you struggle in school when you just come here, but that there is a future. So I know that I went there, and then you follow me, and then somebody said, you should really talk to Patricia. But I was excited that Plainfield was actually recognizing that they needed to bring people like you and me to talk to the students about their stories, about the history, about what's happening, so that they have hope. Because at the end of the day, our stories of success, or just as stories of survival, actually give hope to the new generation that they can do something, that they can actually get through this phase in their lives. So I want to commend you for doing that and for making the connections, right? Because you and I do different type of research, but it's all in the same vein of elevating the stories of our communities.
Exacto. I mean, I don't have the resources or the training to do as a deep study, but as journalists, we have an easiest way to tell stories. And when I go to college or universities and they ask, so how many people did you interview for this? Over 250. And how are you able to talk to them? Listen, one of the first people that I met, it was in my building, from el piso 2 al sótano, que son 3 minutos. La persona, un trabajador de construcción, me contó su historia. O sea, porque vio a mi hija agarrada de mi mano, mi hija de 3 años, y él inmediatamente se conectó. Yo no he visto a mis hijos en 12 años. So that is hard.
Real. That's real.
So if I had one talent, this is the way for me to give back to this country and to my culture too.
Excellent. Well, I think you have my son said that people like you and me have the talent to talk to everybody, talk to people and get their stories. So I'm going to use my 11-year-old son to, Mama, your superpower is that you can talk to people. So that's your superpower as well.
Yes.
Getting those stories. How can people get the book, and how can they connect with you if they want to help you get the book in the public library?
Well, I'm very proud to announce that the book is available in Barnes & Noble. You can go to the website. Yes. And just the English version. The Spanish and the English version is available on Amazon too. And if you want a signed copy, you can connect direct with me through social media. Facebook is at SalviYorkers, and also Instagram at SalviYorkers, and the shipping cover the y los el includes the shipping.
Okay, so includes the shipping
Yeah.
once you order there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what a treat it has been to talk to you about why you wrote this book, about the stories that are included in here. And if you just get a taste of some of the stories, you can find more in the book and get inspired. Por favor, compren el libro, regáleselo a sus papis, a sus mamis que les gusta leer en español, para sus hijos en inglés. Buy it and for your sons and daughters in English. And let's just help get our stories, our experience out. Salvadorans and Central Americans have been migrating to these countries for many, many years. And our story is rich, and we are part of the fabric of this country. So let's help promote them. Let's help, that promotes more understanding, and it gives our young people pride. So that's why I do these kind of discussions, because I want our young SalviYorkers, our young Salvi New Jerseyans, and then just our Salvis to feel proud of the rich culture and the history of success that we have had in this country despite so many ads. So gracias, Carmen, por contar esta historia y por hacer este trabajo de tu corazón. Y muy buena suerte.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. And soon, the audiobook. And that's another goal.
That's another project, right? To get it. Is that gonna be your voice, or you're gonna hire?
No. As the same of the translation. The translation took 2 years. No, because I'm not native. And also, but we are working with the Salvadoran locutora.
Great.
So it's gonna be okay.
Awesome.
So soon we're gonna be the announcement. We're gonna do the announcement.
I wish you good luck, and send it to us. We'll put the link on our website and make sure people know how to get in contact with you and know where to get the book. Muchísimas gracias de todo mi corazón.
Gracias, Patricia. Un placer.
Activista Rise Up, please buy the book, share the book, ask your library to post it, and ask your elected officials in your county to run it in your county library system. This is the way we make our presence known, by telling our stories and by asking our educational systems, our libraries, to also put the books that tell our stories. This is Activista Rise Up. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.